I'm with the recently chosen Constable of St John, and he will tell me his name.
Andy Jehan.
It sounds like a Jersey name. I don't know, are they historically a Jersey family? I presume they are.
Well, like all local residents, at some stage we came to the island, so not too far back, my father's family came from Brittany. So,
They did, yeah. I mean, it's not a great issue, is it? But you do have to be British to be constable still. They didn't change that. Did they have to change it so you had to be British? I'm not sure. The same as deputies, you had to be British.
Yeah.
And minimum age is what?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to. So you can vote for a constable at 16, but I don't know if you need to be 18 to stand. I don't know.
Now you get chosen. You suddenly have the bright idea one day, or because it used to be. I've been onto a thing where the constable, an announcement appears. They want people to knock on the door and ask them to stand. That doesn't happen anymore, does it?
The deputation is what you're.
The deputation. That's
deputation.
It, yeah.
I hadn't seen a formal deputation for a number of years.
No.
There was COVID when I was
Right.
allowed my name to go forward, but I was approached by a lot of people over many months to allow my name to go forward. But there was no formal deputation.
Having you chosen, how would you then make it known to, obviously you've got to find 10 people to sign your nomination paper. How would you make it known to them what you're proposing to do?
Well, most people who sign a person's nomination form to be elected rather than chosen, I'm sure we'll agree to disagree on that matter, won't sign your paper unless they actually know you and know what your values are and what your vision is. Most of them will want to know what will you do for the parish, what will your priorities be. So there are different conversations that take place with different people who sign the paper. So some people want to know about my views around the parish, whether that's providing additional homes for affordable homes for first-time buyers, or whether that's providing additional step-down properties, or both. Some will want to know my views on the proposals the parish has had to improve the area outside the parish hall with a memorial garden and parking.
Right.
Some will want to know my views on the economy and my views on island-wide issues. So a whole range of questions are asked before people sign your paper. And in choosing the people to sign your paper, you want people who have good standing within the community, from all around the parish. We have a big issue with some people at Zion who feel left out, so I made sure I had people from the Zion area who signed my paper as well, and different ages as well. I think that's really important, and I was delighted to have 5 ladies.
Is there a minimum age to sign your paper?
They need to be on the electoral list, so somebody could be 16.
They could be 16,
Yeah.
could they? Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting because even as you're talking, you're verging into activities which will go outside the parish.
Sure.
Housing is all island.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about those a bit later if we've got time. But this idea that you have a group of people. Now, if anybody else wants to contest you in a small parish like this, population-wise, there's only going to be so many people who are up for. So now that, as I know, I've stood for election before. It's not always easy. Oh, I don't want to be associated with you. They might not disagree with what you say. They don't want to be. So anybody who was different to you in views, they might find it difficult to find those 10 names, mightn't they? I mean, they might find it even more difficult to get them, but at least the vote is private.
Absolutely, and I was under the impression right up until nomination night that I was going to have a contested election.
Right.
Because I'd spoken to a very capable person who told me that he was going to stand. The reason I didn't know until election night is my inability to operate my answer phone, because the gentleman left a message on my answer phone the night before to say he wasn't going to stand. So I was very much prepared for an election. My team were prepared for an election.
Right.
My manifesto was written, and I was, as far as I was concerned, I was facing a contested election. So after the nomination, I produced the manifesto, and I distributed it personally to every household on the island.
Did you?
In the parish, I beg your pardon, yeah.
That's interesting because that gets us into the area of election expenses. Did you have to submit a report for that?
No, I didn't. I spent around £260.
Right.
I checked with the Gref what my responsibilities were, and because I'd been elected, I didn't have to put in election expenses.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not one of those late returners then, so you're clear on that issue.
I was very conscious of that, and
Were you?
I was very conscious and liaised with the Gref because I thought that I would have to still submit, but I was told I didn't have to submit.
Under the system as proposed, which as far as I know it's now it has been enacted, and I'm trying to work out the hows and wheres, the none of the above clause. Now in your instance, you were, as it happened, you weren't contested. Now, there will be the facility for people to say none of the above, and at least that will be secret. Nobody will know who they are.
Yeah.
But they could register. It's very unlikely, in my view, that any of that would ever succeed. Because if they were going to do that anyway, they'd probably find somebody to stand to represent them. But however, it's possible. Mm. Do you think that will have an effect? Do you think it might encourage other people to stand?
I don't know if it will or if it won't. I think the larger districts, particularly in the rural parishes, will increase the amount of contested constables' elections, because candidates will have a decision to make whether to stay within their parish and contest the constable seat, or whether to go into a larger district. So I am hopeful that we will see more contested elections. I think it's going to be incumbent on the candidates, if it's not contested, to go out there and canvass so that there isn't a large number of none of the above, to demonstrate that that individual has got the parish's confidence to represent them and to lead the parish.
Because if there is a none of the above vote takes place, if people do, it will make the position stronger. If it's not more than the person gets elected. In other words, if there's more people say that, or rather, if there's fewer people say that, it will make this strong when they say, well, you had the opportunity to contest it, but you didn't. So that sort of reinforces the constable's position, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm not sure if you're aware, but many years ago I stood in a contested election for procureur.
All right.
I stood against a sitting procureur who was a former constable, and I was very fortunate to scrape in by a handful of votes. And I worked incredibly hard, the other chap worked incredibly hard, and we had a turnout of around 35% for a procureur election, which is a record on the island. Right. And elections, in my experience, which is vast in terms of elections, elections are won and lost by the amount of effort people actually put into them.
You think so?
Yeah.
You don't think it's almost hereditary in some parishes?
There's no doubt about it that people that are well known are going to be at an advantage against those people that aren't known. There's no doubt about that. It's almost like a brand, isn't it? And also the amount people spend on election has an impact, or can have an impact. Although in the procureur's election I refer to, I spent around £200 because I did an A4 black and white 2-page document, and I was up against a coloured document which was posted to every home, so that would have cost.
Is there a declaration of expenses in procureurs?
No,
there's not. No. Because again, I've not been involved in the parish system. I don't know why, but I'm a political person, and it isn't political really. It shouldn't be. I don't think it should be political in my sense. Yeah. I think there's a huge scope for parishes to do things usefully on an island-wide, amongst themselves at parish level. 12 parishes working together, doing things coordinated. But this idea that you can be nominated by 10 and be elected on that basis, because you don't get paid at parish level.
No.
You can claim expenses. Will you claim expenses?
From the parish? Absolutely not.
You won't, because I noticed there are sums up to about £3,000 on the list of expenses.
So I think if you look at the most recent FOIs, you'll see 6 or 7 constables do claim, and 5 or 6 don't claim.
What sort of things do they claim for? Have you got any idea?
You'd have to ask them, Monica. Those. I think it's historical prior to constables being paid as states members.
Right.
And I think some parishes allow a sum which gets voted through an assembly, and some may have to put in expenses. But you'd have to ask them. I couldn't answer on their behalf. If
you have an issue that comes up, or you want to say, do you go to your parishioners, or can you, and be mandated by them? In other words, the old idea that the parish constable will take directions from his parishioners. Does that happen anymore? It doesn't happen, does it?
Well, I'm trying to encourage more engagement,
Right.
so I'm using social media.
Right.
Every assembly that we've had since I've been elected, we've done a door drop advertising the
Right.
assembly to every parish home, and after each assembly, I invite parishioners to ask questions of myself and the deputy. So an open Q&A session.
Right.
We've had similar questions asked at each of those assemblies, and I'm now considering using a moderator to try and generate a genuine discussion and debate to really try and tease out from parishioners. The hospital was the most recent large debate in the States, and I did canvass widely amongst parishioners. I was also canvassed further afield, but the parishioners are the people that I represent, in my opinion. My video blog, I asked parishioners, whatever their view was on the hospital, to contact me. Not one person contacted me in favour of the £804 million,
No.
but I did have quite a number of people contact me in favour of the scrutiny amendment to reduce the spending and to manage the spending.
Of course, it's a classic example of where you're going outside the parish and dealing with matters which are not parish matters. Now, this is where I have a problem, because obviously there's 12 votes amongst the constables, and you have these committee meetings, I don't know how you say it.
Committee de Comitat.
Well, yes, but if you use the word constable, for me being not a local, which I think, anyway, whether it's correct or wrong, I don't know, but constables. You have these committee meetings. Now, what you discuss there isn't actually disclosed really to the public. They have a bare bones of the minutes, bare bones, but it's not really the full discussion. I feel sure you have a cup of coffee and have a good chat amongst yourselves, and, you know, that's inevitable, isn't it? So this is where I'm saying it has the potential to be a party, doesn't it? Now, that's mostly my concern. If you're a party, I could see it developing, and usefully developing, as a party for the parishes. I could see that would be useful. But once it becomes a party for the states, that worries me greatly.
Well, I think if you look at the voting record of the constables in this term of government, I don't think you can say with any shape or form that we act as one body. We certainly don't. It's regularly constables will vote both in favour and against the same proposition. So there isn't, as you suggest, cooperation amongst the constables in terms of major debates within the states. I think again in the hospital debate, it was 7-5, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So it's up to each constable to represent his or her parishioners, and I would encourage my fellow constables to do similar to what I'm trying to do and really engage with the electors. That's, to me, grassroots politics is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see in my manifesto that I want to have more open meetings. I'd like to see my roads committee meet in public.
Right, well, I like parish. St Helier's the only one, isn't it?
It is, and I wrote to the Electoral Commission in 2012 and suggested that, because we also have a group called the Committee Parasol, and I think we could have members elected directly onto that rather than be there by way of their position that they hold, and use that as kind of a sounding board within the parish.
Since they've done that for St Helier, for Roads Committee, what would stop you just doing it? I mean, what process have they done it?
What I need to do is take the people of the parish with me, including the officers.
Right.
And the current roads committee aren't keen on having an open meeting. So we have elections in December of this year, and so I will try again in December of this year to take my colleagues with me, because it's much easier to take people with you than to enforce change on them.
It depends. And I've not been involved in the parish system, as I say, so I don't know what actually goes on. But I mean, the hearing that was the unfortunate hearing that took place, where there was a commissioner, was William Balash, I think, chair. It was the commissioner in the Royal Court, and it was the procurers who were getting it in the neck. Now, it was all very cosy, and I found it a little bit too cosy for my liking. But the Attorney General was instructed to look at the rules for administration. Would it include things like this about making these things more public? Because obviously that was one of the issues. It wasn't made public what had happened.
Well, there's a very distinct difference. A procureur has to do what an assembly instructs him or her to do. So there's a very clear
Right.
definition, and it's different to other elected representatives. They can be instructed by an assembly to do things. If they disagree with that instruction, they have the ability to take their argument to the Royal Court and say,
Right.
the parish has asked me to do X, but I don't believe we should do because of
Right.
Y. So that they have got that ability. The Attorney General's work has led to a review of the role of the procureur,
Right.
and I was a procureur for 8 years,
Right.
and so, but I also come from a commercial background, so as a fellow of the Institute of Directors, you'd expect me to understand governance, and a lot of things have changed in terms of governance, and that includes parish administration.
Right.
And we have to keep up with the times, whether that's around data protection, whether that's around health and
Exactly.
safety, whether that's about human resources and employment legislation. And so you have to be abreast of your legal responsibilities if you're involved in an officer role of an entity. And so it's something that I'm struggling with as a member of the States when I read that chairmen of committees have only attended 33 or 42% of the meetings that they're due to chair. Well, if you're the chairman of a body, you are responsible for that body.
Well, the case, it was in that particular case, the previous constable, the question of insurance came up, and I already sort of mentioned to you the fact that there was a very large number of people involved in insurance companies or insurance that had been connected with this parish, and it was one of the strange things when I was sitting there to discover that insurance was not in fact in place. Now, there ought to be, the questions arose, is it estates insurance, well, all these things, these ought to be sorted out on an island-wide basis, didn't they? All parishes should operate on the same legal basis, shouldn't they?
Well, certainly, again, if I can draw on my experience
Right.
as a company director, I would not accept a position of director unless there was appropriate insurance in place for the officers and directors of that organisation, because it's a big legal responsibility. You're making decisions,
Exactly.
and your decisions can be questioned. So it is appropriate that you make a decision based on the information you have on the day, and you can defend those decisions. So in terms of insurance, I can assure you that the parish has got good insurance cover in
Right.
place. I can't say that, I can't speak for other parishes, but I would imagine that they've all looked at their insurance in
Right.
recent months. So it is something that's important. But again, you mentioned about people involved in insurance companies. If you look at my declarations of interest on the state's website, you'll see not only any paid role, but also any voluntary role.
Right.
So I think more emphasis should be put on members to declare any unpaid role that they hold, because I think that's also important, that people know what else you're involved in.
Well, the so-called charitable sector is so intermixed now with state's provision, or maybe even parish provision, I don't know. But there's an intermixing going on, which again I don't find very pleasant. Now, the honorary system, as it was always called, it's not an honorary system if you're going to get paid in some way, shape or form. Basically, do you think that constables should be unpaid?
I would do the job as constable if it was unpaid,
Right.
but I would probably not do it for another 4 or 5 years if it was unpaid. So it's about affordability, because I would love to have done a role within the state many years ago, but could I afford to take a £60,000-70,000 pay cut and still pay my mortgage and educate my family further education? The answer would be no. So it's a difficult question. It's a real dilemma for somebody like me who's always wanted to represent people, and that goes back to my young days when I was a trade union representative. I've always done things for people. That's my values and makeup. But it's around affordability, you know. So I used to work 2 days a week and earn twice as much as I'm earning now. So
Really?
that's
Wow.
that's the kind of
Well,
dilemma.
of course, that's one of the sort of distortions that there are in the Jersey economy.
And that's an issue for people. That we always talk about attracting good candidates, but when you're faced with raising a family, paying a mortgage, do you want to do what your heart tells you, or do you do what your head tells you? Because you have responsibilities to your family, and
now you've
they
got the
always
seat
come
where you
first.
are. You're now sitting there. You're the man in control.
Yeah.
Is it what you thought it was? The job, Constable?
I think the vast majority is it's an amazing job, absolutely amazing. You can be dealing with a whole range of things. It's challenging at times. It's very rewarding at times. I think the thing that surprised me the most is the sheer volume of reading you need to do to prepare yourself for debates.
But is that for parish or states?
Well, it's both.
If you were to separate them out, if you could, if you were only allowed to do parish work in this office, could you fill your day?
You wouldn't fill your day as a constable. So I sit on a number of scrutiny panels. I was recently appointed to the public accounts. I was on the hospital review, and I'm on the GST panel. I'm also, as you said right at the outset, still learning. So whilst I brought with me a lot of parochial experience from my time throughout the municipality, especially as a procureur, so I understand how the machine of the parish works in terms of finance and budgeting, etc. And I bring all of my commercial experience to the table. But I've never been a constable before or a states member, and so I have a steep learning curve. I try to ask relevant questions, written questions and oral questions. I try to participate positively in debates. I don't speak for very long when I speak, but I try, if I've got something to say, I'll say it and sit down again.
You do have the benefit of an office,
Yeah.
which presumably you can use for states or parish work if you choose to.
Yeah.
It's somewhere where people can come and meet you, like I'm meeting you here today.
Sure.
We talk in private and quiet.
Yeah.
That's good. States members generally don't have that provision, do they? Unless they get up to ministerial level, and they might share a desk with somebody. I mean, it's all very, very unsatisfactory, isn't it? But at least, as you're set up as constables, they've all got an office to work from. There's always somewhere secretarial staff to give them support if they need it. There's always somebody to answer a telephone for them.
Well, I have to say, I see the parish secretary's role as being the parish secretary,
Right.
not the constable secretary. So the parish secretaries, whilst I'm sat here, won't be doing anything for me in terms of states work.
But they will be taking messages where they say, Mr. So-and-so called, and you'll know that. So it could be states work in that sense, in a simplistic sense.
In simplistic sense, but most people who want to get in touch with you these days send you an email and ask you to contact
It
them.
doesn't always work.
No, it can be phones, but you'll also see my mobile number and my home number
Right.
are listed on both the parish website and the government website, because I think it's important we do give people our home numbers and our mobile numbers,
Really?
and not hide behind an office number.
Right. I mean, would it be better? I mean, you've been in business. Wouldn't it be better if, because some of the parishes have got very limited hours they're actually open, but they're not open all day.
Yeah.
And obviously people work, and evenings would be better for some people. You can't expect the constable to be there day and night, can you? He can't do everything, can he? So to make it more business-like, wouldn't it be better to have it structured so that there is always somebody to answer the phone that will take messages?
Well, I can tell you that when I was a procureur, I was heavily involved in opening St John's Parish Hall on a Wednesday evening between 5 and 7 p.m. to enable parishioners who are working, who are busy, to have one evening a week where they can access the services of the parish. We currently close all day on a Thursday. I would like us to open at least on a Thursday morning.
Right.
But we are open on a Wednesday evening for parishioners.
Right.
And another thing I've done to make it easier for parishioners is introduced card payments, because prior to my arrival, you either paid by cheque or cash. You couldn't do any transaction online. So people will be phoning up today as we come to a week from our rates deadline. People will be phoning up today and paying their rates on the phone with their credit or debit cards. And that's something that I think we've got to make it much easier for parishioners to engage with us.
I noticed in the vestibule just out there, you've got quite a lot of leaflets for local things.
Yeah.
I haven't looked in detail, but the tourism industry has got a miserable little information desk in the bus station at the moment. Now, if there are 12 parish halls offering services for tourists, stopping off, driving around, they're going around in their car, hire a car, on their bicycles, whatever, to stop off at the parish hall and get useful information about tourism, a coordinated information, where there are disabled toilets, clean disabled toilets, all that sort of basic stuff which people want to know. Isn't that the sort of thing that could be developed in a coordinated way by all the 12 parishes?
I certainly could. I think there's a lot more that we could do as parishes. In fact, only yesterday we were on a call around COVID, and the lateral flow test kits are going to be distributed by Jersey Post, and I know through my long experience that they have got no problem doing that distribution. But I asked the question, why don't we have some at the parish halls where people can collect them? Because we can do far more for our community, and I'd like to see the parish hall become a hub rather than somewhere where you only go once a year to renew your dog licence or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, exactly. I don't know what percentage in St John don't speak English as their first language, but there will be not many people speaking Jerry, I'm for sure. But anyway, other languages. Do you have much involvement with them?
We're very fortunate in St John's in as much as one of our administrators is a linguist. Right. So that is more luck than judgment. Right. But we do rely on one of our colleagues to translate at times for us. And so, as I say, it's more luck than judgment, but we are fortunate in that respect.
Some of them will be British, because they will have taken the nationality. There's the fact that they are eligible for become constable. They could stand for constable. Do you think they are in any way inhibited because they're not true Jersey, as they would say?
I don't know. My mother passed away recently, and I was delighted that she could come and see me get sworn in April. Right. My grandmother was the caretaker at St Martin's Public Hall for 25 years. So for my mother to have had her mum as a caretaker for 25 years at a public hall, to see her son become a constable, she would have never thought she'd have seen that. So I would never rule it out for people, you know.
We mustn't go on forever talking about parish. I want to try and talk a bit about the overlap. I'm a resident of St Clement at the moment. I'm a resident of St Clement. I object to you voting on things which affect everybody in the island, including me in St Clement. Do you not concede that that is unfair?
Well, I don't see it's unfair in as much as the Deputy of St John is also able to decide on things that happen within the island. The Deputy of St Juan can decide what happens in the island and all around the parishes. So we have representation from all around the island. I think the larger districts will be fairer because that's a more equal proportion of votes. My preference would have been to have 36 all-island elections. People elected all-island for 36. I actually managed a campaign in the Guernsey election.
Did you?
So I followed that with great interest.
Right.
And
I kept an eye on it.
Yeah, I was very involved in that. And I do think, I know we're going to disagree on this, but I do think that the 12 constables, the constable has to evolve. He or she needs to be more engaged with their community, listen in terms of communication. Communication is a two-way thing, and we need to listen to what the residents of our parishes are saying and represent them in the State Assembly.
Because there's already a couple of constables have joined parties.
Yeah.
Now that is especially worrying to me, because where's their mandate to join a party from their parish? Because they're chosen by the parish. Do you think constables should be a member of a party?
Well, it's a really interesting question. I can see loads of benefit in party politics. I think I was fascinated to listen to Lord Blunkett last night, as you were, and his view, and I share his view. You need to join a party for the right reasons, for the right values, not because your mates are part of that group. That'd be the very wrong thing to do. And if a constable does join a party, my advice to them would be make sure that they're not going to be whipped on any decision that involves parochial matters. So I'll give you an example. If the Education Minister wanted to close the parish school, and he was a member of a party that supported that view, he or she would do wrong by supporting that view. They should represent their parish view. So I know that's unlikely to happen, but we have seen that recently in Guernsey, so it could happen. And I think there would need to be enough wriggle room, if I can call it that, within any party whip for constables to get out of that. And I don't know the constitution of the party that has been formed that has got constables aligned to it. So
there are aspects to this which do bother me. I mean, I remember the Plymouth debate years ago, which was really a parish matter for St. One's. And I thought it was rather strange that other constables were being lobbied by their parishioners on something that was happening in St. One's. And really, you could say, well, it's an all-island matter. Well, it is an all-island matter, but therefore it ought to be dealt with strictly at an all-island basis, shouldn't it? It shouldn't be lobbying with parish through the constables and bearing in mind that the constables do chat amongst themselves. And the threat was building houses in a particular parish, for which there is an all-island need. These things are never as simple as they seem, are they? The boundaries are not clear.
Yeah, I think the reality of constables all chatting amongst themselves is all states members chat amongst themselves.
They do.
And there's lots of phone calls that take place between states members who are trying to get you to support or oppose a certain proposition. And some politicians are proficient at that. I have to say my phone hardly ever rings, so they probably know they're not going to change my mind. But there's lobbying and discussions and collaboration between senators, between deputies, between constables, and between all of those groups combined. And you see that happening at lunchtimes. You see that happening in the coffee room. Although I don't use the coffee room, I think we should be sat in our seats listening to the debate rather than chatting about the weather or what we're going to do at the weekend. I've been really disappointed by the lack of numbers physically in the Assembly. I appreciate some members can't be there during COVID, but that's very few. But the reality is there's been as few as 4 people in the Assembly at times.
Well, the party issue was made very apparent to me when I ran single-handed, because nobody else wanted to do it, the referendum against constables having the automatic seat.
Yeah.
Now, I did that myself, self-funding, no support, and I think about 9,000 people voted for no, which I thought was a pretty good result. But of course that's used against me. But the fact was, I think there was one constable who actually gave me some support. But there, I'd go to the senatorial meeting, and there'd be people there, all there with their yes badges up, totally outflanking. I mean, there's no way, I couldn't even sit on the table with them, I couldn't even discuss, I had no status in it. Now the constables were en bloc, pretty much, in favour of constables. Now that's a party behaviour, isn't it? That's behaving as a party.
Well, it's certainly group behaviour. I don't think it is party behaviour. That is one.
And it's self-interest as well, because they get paid for it.
Well, it was one issue that they gathered together behind. Right. It's not all issues, so they don't operate. A party will generally operate. They'll have set goals across a whole range of disciplines, and their set goals will be across those disciplines. You're talking about one instance for one.
But it happens on other issues, like, for example, housing, rezoning of green land, or what they call green zone land. Now, virtually en bloc, the constables are against rezoning land.
Well,
pretty much.
I'm going to surprise you.
Except for their own parish, where they have control over who lives in them. This is what I find upsetting.
Okay, so St John's, for the 2011 Island Plan, we set up a committee, elected a committee in the parish to review the proposals in the Island Plan. We've made a submission to that Island Plan. For the Bridging Island Plan, we've done the same again, and we've set up a committee. We send a consultation to every household within the parish, a questionnaire, and we had around 300 responses, which is a good percentage. Yeah. So St John's, we have got 4 amendments in the Island Plan. We have got proposals for 2 small developments of right-size homes, an extension to our rented accommodation on the North Road, Maysville of Acorns, a small development of affordable right-size homes, and some affordable homes for first-time buyers. So we have not had the support of the planning minister for those 3 sites. Therefore, I've put in an amendment which is backed up by the committee, which is elected by the parish to do that work. And we look forward to the debate in March. Well, first we've got.
So it has become a committee issue, so you see what I'm.
Not a committee de Connétable, a committee rural de Saint-Jean.
Okay. Right.
So that group is tasked, and to my left I've got the results of the survey, some of the highlight results where 80% agree or strongly agree parish should develop. 83% of the respondents agreed or strongly agreed the parish having influence over future development. And therefore, any property that is allocated, the people will have to go through the gateway and meet the gateway criteria. So if the gateway says...
Because some constables did opt out of the gateway, they didn't bother with the gateway at all, they just made the decision themselves, which I found very unsavoury.
Well, I think for the rezoning of the land in this Bridging Island plan, it will have to be affordable homes and it will have to go through the gateway. So
Right.
I don't think that any constable will be able to opt out of that. We will retain nomination rights. So
Well, that's where I'd begin to worry. It's an all-island problem to be dealt with.
it is an all-island problem, and I think St John's over the decades has taken a mature approach to that, and you've seen the village and villages develop around the parish. We need officers in our honorary police, etc. We need to maintain our pharmacy, a dentist, the doctors,
That's right.
the local shop, and we need to encourage people to use that.
Yeah.
And therefore, by adding small developments, we think that's a
There are
positive
loads
step.
of issues I'd love to discuss, but
Yeah.
I must stop eventually. But you'll be glad to know. But the one point I would want to stress is that only parishioners can stand for a constable in this parish, and every parish, apart from the vague little opt-out clause for St Helier,
Yeah.
where, that isn't fair, is it? The fact is, I can stand anywhere for a deputy. I've got that choice. Now, the electoral process is not just about voting for somebody, it's about being able to stand yourself and get elected. So anybody can get elected, in my view, to any seat. Now that's where the Guernsey system has overcome that problem. You can do that.
Yeah.
And to my utter amazement, so far it's working in Guernsey. I didn't think they could cope with that number of votes, but they did.
They did.
And Jersey could do the same, couldn't it?
Jersey could. We are similar in many, many ways, and there's lots of opportunities for the islands to work far more closely together and make efficiencies. If we look at this week's news about the IT spend, Guernsey are also embarking on a new IT project. Imagine if we would have worked together, how many tens
Absolutely.
of millions the islands
Absolutely.
could have saved. I do disagree with you in terms of I said earlier I would have preferred 36 senators and 12 constables. I do think the parish voice in the States Chamber is still important, and we will never agree on that, Mike. It's
Well, it's not that I don't think the parishes have got a voice. It's just it's channeled in a very narrow way. That's what worries me.
well, hopefully you can see what I'm trying to do is to.
If they all did that, it would be a huge improvement.
Well, I'm hopeful.
You even look for crocodiles now, I gather.
We look for whatever people want us to look for.
Hey,
We don't always have the right answers, but we're trying to promote the community here. It's about engagement. Only this week we had our first meeting of our climate emergency group, and I'm delighted to see 6 members of that team. 5 of those people have never been involved in anything to do with the municipality before. The same with the Committee Rural. The vast majority of those people haven't been involved in the municipality before, and with both of those groups, the constable is an ex officio member, and therefore we have a different chairperson, and we're there to listen as much as to contribute.
children are supposed to be the top priority
Yeah.
for this island. Is it the top priority in this parish?
Yeah, I'd say the work that we're trying to do with the field next to us is to provide a forest school for not only for the school but also for parishioners. We have recently, my predecessor did a good job in getting a football pitch passed for the school, so that will increase
Have
their...
you signed the pledge?
I haven't been asked to sign the pledge, Mike, much to my shock and dismay. I spoke about the pledge in my first speech in the States to say that most people had signed the pledge, and to vote against increasing the minimum wage would be going against
It's a
the
meaningless
pledge.
pledge, isn't it?
Well, I'm shocked that I've been in post for over 6 months and no one has asked me to sign the pledge.
Corporate parent and all that.
Well, we could talk about the corporate parent board, which didn't meet for over 12 months, changed its membership not in a meeting as the Articles of Association say, but changed at mid-July, I think.
Well, these are all island issues. I mean, I would love you to get involved if you're going to be active in them. We need somebody to be active in them, but...
Well, I wrote to both the Chief Minister and the Education Minister questioning why the Corporate Parenting Board hadn't met, suggesting that there were people within the States with talents who could have managed that board during COVID whilst other people were busy. We don't utilise the talents we have in the States. I'm shocked, as I said earlier, that a chair of a committee can attend fewer than half the meetings and still claim the title of chair of that committee. I think we argue a lot about having too many states members. I think when you look at the responsibilities of some states members, it's bringing me to the conclusion we might have too few.
Well, I came to that conclusion years ago. Local, national, international issues. You can't do it. They've got 650 in the UK to run it, and they're still in a mess. So, you know, absolute final question. We both at that meeting last night, conference, which I thought was superb. It had some funny things in it. It was getting people with disabilities to talk, to participate. It was engaging, trying to engage.
Yeah.
What is this parish doing on disability issues?
We are ensuring that our properties are fit for purpose. We have one property, our sport and recreation centre, where we've spent a lot of money recently. We've made great strides by providing disabled access, disabled toilet facilities that weren't there before we made the changes. You know, we have disabled access into this building. When the work was done here in 2010, we introduced a disabled toilet for the first time. I'm sure there's more we can do, but I thought last night was fantastic. Absolutely blown away by not only Lord Blunkett, by the person who spoke before him. I thought was absolutely tremendous, and then rounded off the night was stolen by the youngsters at the end, and I thought
Singing.
it was terrific. Yeah.
Signing.
Yeah, it's
You had
fantastic.
to have a handkerchief for that one.
Yeah, it was great.
It was. I won't waste any of your time, any more of your time. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to me.
Anytime, you're very welcome. Thank
There's
you.
11 more yet to interview. Thanks.